John, tell us what you found. Tell us what your report says. Your findings on the cameras in St. Louis.
Yeah, so this was a multi-year study of the surveillance cameras, the street cameras that are around St. Louis. And what we found was that there are really a hodgepodge of networks that are forming, and there's a plan to integrate those cameras and spread that network citywide. But along the way, what we found was there was really a lack of policies to protect privacy and civil liberties concerns. Some people had policies in place that were fairly good. Other places had no policies whatsoever. And so along the way, we saw that there were abuses already developing and already having happened. And so we wanted to ask the city to slow down a little bit and examine this question for the cost and benefits of cameras, both in terms of finances, their effectiveness, and their civil liberties implications, and then move forward thoughtfully as we, if we're going to put a network together.
What's your number one concern? People might look at something like the Central West End NSI and say, look at all the benefits.
So I'm very concerned that it's an expensive program, that it might well be that it's not worth the cost, and that along the way we're violating people's privacy rights.
Have you thought about body cameras? We've heard that mentioned quite a bit tonight already.
Yeah, so a lot of the people who are interested in police accountability are pushing body cameras right now, and I agree with that they can be very effective. But again, there are privacy considerations with the cameras as well. We don't want a walking mobile government surveillance of people 24 hours as they walk around on the streets. We don't want cameras going into people's homes with a police officer who might be invited into your home, but then suddenly your contents of what you had for dinner are on display and open to sunshine requests. We don't want victims of crime who are traumatized necessarily to be on camera. So there are a lot of questions around the body cameras, and we have to protect privacy as well. And in both cases, with street cameras and body cameras, you have to worry about who has access, whether these are protected information that are shielded from the public, that the police have access when needed to solve crimes, but not in other cases. And so there are a lot of questions on the street and then behind the scenes with what happens to the data.
Could you do what you're doing without the cameras?
Well, we did do what we're doing without cameras for a while, and with limited success. So in January, in the Central West End, we had a subject who committed 2 armed robberies in our neighborhood, and then he committed 2 armed robberies in another adjoining neighborhood. Our cameras were able to get a license plate number of his vehicle, and that was instrumental in the police detectives' ability to identify and apprehend this guy. And this is a guy who got out in December for serving a 19-year sentence for armed robbery, and within less than a month, he was out victimizing other people. So that's when John talks about the expense, that's the return on our investment that we're getting. We're able to provide the police department with what they need to accurately and successfully investigate.
You get any
these crimes.
pushback from the folks in the neighborhood or the businesses when it comes to the things John's talking about in terms of their privacy?
No, I have not had any resident come up to me, and I've been speaking about cameras in the Central West End for over 2 years now, and my experience has been I have not had a resident come up to me and voice concerns over privacy issues that the cameras might create.
Tell us a little bit about the work you're doing, Cortez.
Last year, we made a substantial investment in installing new cameras in our high-rise buildings in public housing. We have 6 high-rise buildings. We saw instant success after those cameras came live. I mean, we were able to apprehend a burglary suspect the day after that's trying to break into an office space. I was able to sit in my office across town, view this happening, get a description of them. We get the police there, and the suspect was apprehended right after that. So it's been beneficial. It's helped us out a lot as far as what we need to review. It's important to know that cameras can tell you who, what, when, where, and how. It cannot, you won't see everything. And it's a misconception that if you hang a camera there, it should have captured everything, but that's not the case. Sometimes that you're out of the camera view and things of that nature there, but I spent 17 years in camera works in casinos, an industry that spent millions on security and cameras. But even with that aspect, you couldn't cover the entire property.
Do they have any sort of preventative effect? Does the word get out that they're there?
My experience is that it can deter some, but I think an individual who wants to commit a crime is going to commit that crime. And you have to put that piece of the puzzle together to be able to go back and ascertain, like I said before, who, what, when, where, how, the description, and then you work from that point there.
Does that worry you when I say something like preventative aspect of a camera?
Well, it does. When you look at the studies, people can bring to the table anecdotes of successes with cameras, but when you look at the studies, they really haven't been that effective in fighting crime or in preventing crime. So, for instance, the one study we have here in St. Louis is around the 21st Ward cameras, and folks at UMSL looked at the installation of those cameras and the crime rates before and after. And what they found was that there was a fairly substantial drop right after the cameras were put in place, but within a 6-month period, the crime started to go back up. And in the end, there was a moderate effect on property crime, but almost no effect at all on violent crime, which is one of our major concerns in the city right now.
Of course, it's not all just cameras. In the Central West Indian and other neighborhoods, you have associations that chip in and pay for extra officers. Is that something that plays a big role in the security of a neighborhood, and is that the way it should be?
Yes, especially in our neighborhood. And the added security patrols are just one of the components of a larger security approach for our neighborhood. So they're very effective. The officers are on bikes. They're very engaging with the community, and the residents really respond well to that.
A lot of neighborhoods have associations that get involved, but of course not every neighborhood is created equal. Is there a disparity in the supplemental elements of patrols in neighborhoods?
Well, that's one of my concerns, is that really we want the government police department to be doing its job and providing equal protection for everyone. And when you have a situation where some neighborhoods are able to afford extra protection, then you get unequal treatment. And I think there also becomes questions about unequal influence. So, for instance, one of the things we found is that the Downtown Partnership chips in to pay for St. Louis police officers on bikes downtown. But so if they're paying for the police, are the business interests getting extra protection and some of the other people downtown aren't getting the same kind of treatment? So those are the questions that come up when you have these supplemental forces.
Go ahead.
We made a substantial investment also in hiring a security team. When I came on board in East St. Louis, the officers were understaffed and they just couldn't keep up with the calls. It's no fault of their own, but crime rate was up and there was issues in public housing, as you would know. So we got together and we had to form a security force, and they were trained, a well-trained security force as far as in adding an element to this cameras. Now you have a patrol force that's proactively patrolling, which is very important. And my team, I require them to do community policing as well. Get out of the cars, talk to our residents, get to know what's going on, find that common ground, and people will talk to you.